Popular in the US in the mid-century, there's been a real insurgence in its popularity. Simply put, the Volkswagen Karmann Gia is a stylish and iconic sports-style car that has long captured hearts. But this time it's taking the whole world by storm. This car has a rich and fascinating history, from its design and production to its enduring popularity and legacy, even making appearances in Hollywood films and video games. After the war. After the end of World War II, and for many the Great Depression, the world was slowly beginning to recover. Over the next decade, people saw a steady increase in income, and subsequently, the world saw more demand for the concept of getting more for one's money. Particularly in the automotive world, there was a dire lack in vehicles that were anything but simple and functional. An emergence of flagship cars from auto companies such as Volkswagen, Chevrolet, and Ford. Volkswagen in particular at that time were marketing fairly well and small and efficient cars, the Beetle and the Bus, and had built quite the reputation for being reliable, so they wanted a model to be rather more of an image car. Through the desire of Karmann GmbH, producers of the Beetle Cabriolet for VW, the Karmann Gia concept was born. Chrysler contracted with the Italian styling and coach-building firm of, aptly named Ghia, to build a series of image cars. Some of these cars were ultimately produced, but one car that did not make it to production ended up benefiting Volkswagen substantially. That car would eventually become the Volkswagen Karmann Gia. While Chrysler worked with Ghia, Volkswagen contracted with the German coach builder, Karmann, to build their image. Karmann, in need of a design, approached Ghia, and somehow the old Chrysler design resurfaced and was modified to fit the floor plan of the VW Beetle. The Karmann Gia was first designed by Italian coach builder Carrozzeria Ghia in the early 1950s. It was a joint project with German car manufacturer Volkswagen, who provided the chassis and mechanical components. The car's design was intended to be a sleek and stylish sports car, with a low slung body, curved roofline, and distinctive rear end. The first Karmann Gia prototypes were created in 1953, and the car went into production in 1955. It was manufactured by Wilhelm Karmann GmbH at their factory in Osnabrück, Germany. Often dubbed the poor man's Porsche, the Karmann Gia was based on the Volkswagen Beetle, but it had a distinctive body design that set it apart from its more utilitarian counterpart. In 1969, the Karmann Gia was named one of the most beautifully designed products in the world, and it is good to see that still holds up for many people today. The Karmann Gia was an instant success when it was first introduced, especially amongst starry-eyed Americans who wanted to cruise around in something cool. It was stylish, affordable, and fun to drive, and it quickly became a favorite of car enthusiasts around the world. Over the years, the car went through several design changes and upgrades, including a larger rear window, a longer wheelbase, and more powerful engines. The first Karmann Gia prototypes were created in 1953, and the car was in production from 1955 until 1974, with a total of over 445,000 units manufactured. Today, it remains an iconic and highly sought-after classic car, with an incredibly loyal following. The Karmann Gia was powered by an air-cooled, rear-mounted engine, with displacement ranging from 1.2 to 1.6 liters, and horsepower ranging from 30 to 60. The car had a top speed of around 90 miles per hour, and was equipped with a 4-speed manual transmission. It was also known for its excellent handling and maneuverability, making it a joy to drive on winding roads. The Volkswagen Karmann Ghia is a true classic of the automotive world, with a rich history and enduring legacy. From its distinctive design and production to its enduring popularity and loyal fan base, this car has captured the hearts and imaginations of car enthusiasts around the world. Whether you're a collector, an enthusiast, or simply a fan of classic cars, the small and lovable Karmann Gia is a car that is sure to impress. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, people around the world had pretty much recovered from World War II. As many of these people began to prosper again, they started to demand better, more elegant, and more entertaining things for their money. Unfortunately, at this time, the world automotive market was dominated by rather bland, but functional cars. Most automotive manufacturers, Volkswagen included, felt the need to come out with a flagship car to bolster their image. Witness the Ford Thunderbird, Chevrolet Corvette, and of course the Volkswagen Karmann Gia. The story behind the development of the Karmann Gia is an interesting one. Volkswagen, in the early 1950s, was facing the prospect of selling a small line of ugly, cars the Beetle and the Bus to a more demanding car-buying public, VW executives felt it was necessary to introduce an image car to reach this new market. Several other car companies were in the same situation, most notably Chrysler. Chrysler contracted with the Italian styling and coach-building firm of Gia to build a series of dream cars. While Chrysler produced some of these dream cars, one car they did not produce would eventually become, you guessed it, the Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. While Chrysler worked with Gia, Volkswagen contracted with the German coach builder, Karmann, to build their image car. Karmann, in need of a design, approached Gia, and somehow the old Chrysler design surfaced and was modified to fit the Beetle floorpan. The VW executives liked what they saw, and by August of 1955, the first Volkswagen Karmann Ghias rolled off assembly line in Osnabrück, German as 1956 models. The automotive and the public instantly fell in love with the beautiful design and handcrafted workmanship, but not the performance. For the Karmann Gia, Volkswagen decided to use the same 36 HP, flat-4 engine that was being used in the Beetle at the time. While the looks and craftsmanship made for a sporty car, the small engine did not make a sports car. The power was adequate and the suspension was good for the era. These two factors combined with the Karmann Gia's great looks made for a fairly good selling car, totaling over 10,000 the first year. When the convertible came out a couple of years later in 1958, sales jumped to around 18,000 cars per year. Sales climbed steadily until the late 1960s, when they peaked in the neighborhood of 33,000 cars a year. The Karmann Gia was last produced in 1974 to make way for the new VW Scirocco. Only 365,912 coupes and 79,326 convertibles were produced, which make the Karmann Gia a fairly rare car considering it was produced for nearly 20 years. It's interesting to note that only a couple of years after the Karmann Gia was introduced, Volkswagen refocused its efforts on the Beetle. The VW executives felt the Beetle had enough image of its own, and that the company would be most successful if it continued to sell the Beetle by the millions. During the same time period, several other image cars debuted, including the aforementioned Chevrolet Corvette and Ford Thunderbird. These cars were indeed true sports cars, and in an effort to maintain sales in light of this competition, VW embarked on a unique advertising campaign. Volkswagen tried to convince consumers to focus on the beauty of the Karmann Gia and ignore the engine or lack thereof. Some ads were quite funny. For instance, in one television commercial, they showed a Karmann Gia racing toward a huge sheet of paper as to rip through it, only to bounce off of it. In some print ads, VW had the nerve to put a Ghia in the same picture as a Maserati and Lamborghini, and then tell you that even though the Ghia isn't as fast, it sure costs a lot less. Today, the Karmann Gia is one of the most sought-after air-cooled Volkswagens, especially the convertibles. Appraised values of nice coupes typically run from $3,000 to $6,000 for coupes and $7,000 to $10,000 for convertibles. I've even seen some advertised for as much as $15,000. Not bad for a car that originally sold for around $3,000. Most parts are readily available, especially the mechanical parts, and are quite reasonably priced. It is quite possible to restore an old Karmann Gia to its original beauty and add a larger engine and better suspension to come up with a true sports car. The biggest drawback to restoring a Gia is that they tend to rust considerably more than other Volkswagens. This is probably due to their unibody construction, the fact that they were hand-built. Fortunately, there are plenty of aftermarket body parts available, and when restored by a capable body shop, they can look just as good or better than original. The Karmann Gia has a graceful, timeless design that, in 1969, was named one of the most beautifully designed products in the world. In June of 1972, Car and Driver magazine put the Karmann Gia into world-class status by comparing it to the ever-classic Porsche Speedster. The Volkswagen Karmann Gia is truly a special car. It is beautiful and timeless in design, and it wonderfully affordable, reliable, and fun to drive.